Hello everyone, my name is Cullum. I work with the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs at Brock University as a Research Awards and Scholarship Specialist, and today I'll be going over the application process for the Canada Graduate Scholarship Doctoral Competition for the 2025-2026 cycle. So just a quick overview of the award. That's what's going to be taking place here in this presentation, including some significant changes to the 2025-26 cycle. Application instructions are different instructions for each of the agencies, as well as different components that's needed. And then I'll be also providing some tips and tricks throughout and at the end of this presentation. So for those of you who don't know, the Canada Graduate Research Scholarship Doctoral Program, it used to be called CGS-D, it's now CGRS-D. It's run by the three federal funding programs that make up the Tri-Agency Councils of Canada. So you have SSHRC, which is the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. You have NSERC, which is the National Science and Engineering Research Council. And then you have CIHR, which is the Canadian Institute of Health Research. You can only apply to one agency. So if you submit to two or all three of the agencies, the one that is submitted first is going to be the one that will be selected. The other two or the other one will not be considered. You also can't apply for the doctoral competition and the master's competition in the same year. So determining which agency to apply to, some of you have a pretty clear idea already of which agency is best suited for your research project. Some of you might be taking an interdisciplinary approach, and so it's not so clear in that way. So I definitely recommend that you have a long conversation with your supervisor if you fall into the latter category, to determine which agency not only best fits with your research, but it would also give you the best opportunity to have your research funded. So some significant changes that are happening this year. First and foremost, the CGRS-D competition is a harmonization of the doctoral competition. In previous years, for those of you who may have applied in the past, there were other competitions within each of the agencies that you were automatically considered for, such as the NSERC PGSD and the SSHRC Doctoral. There was also the Vanier CGS competition, which was a little bit more leaning towards leadership in academia and beyond. Those competitions have been discontinued in order to harmonize the doctoral program to supply more awards at the external level as well. The value of the award is the same as it was last year, which is $40,000 a year for 3 years, so a grand total of $120,000. The biggest change that's coming this year is that international students are now eligible to apply if they are enrolled in a doctoral program at the time of application. So that's a really key point. If you are an international student, you have to be enrolled in a doctoral program in order to apply for the CGRS-D competition. If you are a domestic student, you could be currently enrolled in your doctoral program, or you could be a prospective doctoral student. That is, you are planning on applying to a doctoral program next year, and if you do get a CGRS-D award, you can start holding that award at the start of your PhD program. Now, institutions are given a quota. So quota is the number of applications that can be moved forward for external competition. So SSHRC gives Brock a quota of 16 applications, 13 for NSERC, and then CIHR provides 3. Now, each of the agencies have their own internal deadlines. So this is really, really important to note. If you are an NSERC or a CIHR applicant, the deadline for Brock, our internal deadline, is Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are a SSHRC applicant, the deadline is Monday, October 6th at 4 p.m. Any applications that are submitted after the internal deadlines will not be moved forward for internal review. So again, quickly, the eligibility requirements: open to domestic students, open international students. Again, make sure you note about the enrollment in your program if you're an international student. You need to have the intent to pursue graduate studies and research at the doctoral level when you start holding the award. You can't have already held it in the past. So if you're someone who held a SSHRC doctoral award, for example, you can't hold it again. And you'll have completed no more than 36 months of full-time study in your doctoral program by December 31st, 2025. So the selection criteria for the CGRS-D competition is split evenly between two criteria. The first one is researchability and potential, and the second one is relevant experience and achievements within and beyond academia. So I've highlighted a couple of parts for the researchability and potential criteria. All of these criteria are important, but the bold ones I'd like to draw your attention to most. So with your research proposal, making sure that it's feasible, it's specific, and there's clear significance. So starting at the very beginning with your introduction, it's important for you to set the stage on why your research is important and why it's significant, and be clear in the purpose of your study. So being specific about your methods. Are you going to be recruiting participants? If so, how many will you be recruiting? How are you going to start collecting data? How will you analyze the data? Providing a general timeline of completion for your research is also really important. That's something that reviewers like to see because that's tied in with the feasibility of your project. If you're a doctoral student, let's say you're entering the first year of your doctoral program, if you have a research idea that's going to take 6, 7, 8 years to complete, that's not really a feasible project. So that kind of timeline will give reviewers a better sense of how you're going to complete this study. So along with that, what some people kind of overlook, what some applicants will overlook as part of their research proposal is, as part of that timeline, research impact. So that's not just the significance of your study. So if your hypothesis is true, or what are the implications of that? That is important. But it's also the impact in knowledge mobilization and translation. So are you going to be publishing in journals? Are you going to be doing any literature reviews or meta-analyses that is directly tied with your research or your field of study? Will you be committed to attending and, more importantly, presenting at conferences, either presentation virtually, in person, poster presentations? Are you going to be contributing to that conference, not just attending it? Okay, so that's really, really important there. Knowledge mobilization could be other things as well. So are you communicating this research within the community in which your research is going to be focused on the most, right? Is there a potential to influence some social programs, as an example? Overall, especially when it comes to your research proposal and any of written documents that you provide, it's incredibly important to be clear and concise with your proposal and other written work. You can't just lead the horse to water. You have to lay it out so easily for the reviewer that they clearly understand the message that you are trying to communicate. So I mentioned knowledge mobilization and translation. This can be demonstrated through publication. So publications and presentations and conferences, those are kind of like still the king when it comes to knowledge translation. That being said, reviewers are instructed to understand that the number of publications or conferences that you have attended are related to the field of study that you're in, as well as the level of study that you're in. So if you are still in your master's, you are not expected to complete or to have as many publications as, say, someone in the second or third year of your doctoral program. But there's other ways in which that you can boost some of that knowledge translations or research contribution. So it doesn't just have to be journal publications. It could be things like other scholarly outputs like book chapters, training and mentorship, community involvement, meta-analyses I mentioned a little bit earlier as well. Throughout your application, it's really important as well to be clear and logical, and really want to avoid pitfalls in grammar, punctuation, and formatting. Okay, I've been told from reviewers in the past that anytime that they read a proposal and there's long-running sentences, misspelt words, punctuation used incorrectly, it's not formatted well, so you don't know which section is which, that is something that will automatically deduct marks in their minds. So really making sure that you are being clear with your sections, your formatting, everything like that. And remember also that you're writing to a general academic audience, okay? So don't rely too much on things like technical terms and jargon if you can help it. The other 50% of the criteria is going to look at your relevant experiences and achievements within and beyond academia. So scholarships and awards and distinctions, you ideally want to list competitive awards and distinctions. For those of you who are currently attending at Brock, if you're a research-based student, you'll likely have received a graduate fellowship. That is given out to all thesis-based students, so that's not really a competitive scholarship, but if you don't have anything else to put down, you still can include that. But if you've got any other achievements that are competitive that you had to apply for and you had to put together an application for, those are things that you really want to include in there. When it comes to awards, it's really a cascading effect. So the more awards that you receive, the more you're likely going to get in the near and long-term future. So it's really important, even thinking beyond this year's competition, if you want to become if you want to really round out your CV, your academic CV a lot more, think about applying for different scholarship and award competitions that are niche to your field or niche in some other way. It might be specific to Brock, so internal scholarship and award competitions, things like that. And make sure that you indicate the amount and the prestige of the award as well. So higher level awards or higher amount awards like OGS, which is $15,000, or the Council of Ontario University Awards, Autism Scholars, and Ontario Women's Health. Those are things that you'll definitely want to include if you've successfully received one of those awards. Top applicants demonstrate a balance in their involvement in academia and outside of it. So within academia, so that's things like your academic record, their transcripts, duration of previous studies, that's as long as you're keeping on track with your program, so it's not taking you 8 or 9 years to do an undergrad and a master's, unless there, of course, there are special circumstances, which I'll get into a little bit later. Your course load, that's something that can be considered as well. Within academia, when it comes to activities, that's things like TAing and supervision and instructing. On the topic of TAing, I think it's important to understand that most graduate students, especially research-based graduate students, are expected to be teaching assistants. They're expected to some degree to be research assistants. And there's an expectation, especially for senior doctoral students, to have some sort of mentorship role in your lab or within your cohort. So you really want to start thinking about ways in which you can distinguish yourself from the average TA or the average lab mentor. So for example, have you taken any workshops or certifications that have not only perhaps improved your abilities as a TA, but perhaps as an instructor as well? Right? Are there been any awards that you've received for being an outstanding TA? Are there any sort of programs or initiatives or committees that you've headed to mentor younger students in your lab? These kinds of things really distinguish you from the rest who simply have TA experience. Any involvement that you've had in conferences, within community partners, committees that are on campus or off campus. These are all things that are going to be looked at by adjudicators when looking at your application. So next step is to determine where you're going to apply. So most of you who are watching this video are probably a current student at Brock. But what about for those of you who are applying not at Brock? Where would you go from there? So really important here, again, the application deadline here. This graph provides a really nice overview of how you'll be submitting your application. So again, if you are a Brock student who is currently enrolled in a degree program, you will apply through Brock. If you're not currently enrolled, but you are registered in a Canadian degree program during the calendar year of application, then you would apply through Brock. So let's say if you're a master's student who wrapped up in August or in July, and you're not going to be in a doctoral program, like continuing on with your doctoral program, you're taking a year off perhaps. You would still be applying through Brock because you're originally enrolled in a master's program at Brock. as an example. If you were in a master's program at U of T, or if you're in a doctoral program at U of T, even if you're considering pursuing your doctoral degree at Brock, it would be at the institution that you are currently registered in. So make sure you understand this graph, and you can visit this little website here that provides a little bit more of an explanation, because it's really important that you do this, because choosing the incorrect option will make your application ineligible. So each of the agencies have their own separate application portal. This might be changed for next year for the 2026-27 cycle, but for this year, each agency has their own set of instructions and their own portal, and within each of those portals, there's different things that you have to submit. So for SSHRC, you're going to be filling out the SSHRC web-based CV. So you'll need to follow the instructions there. The information that you're going to include in there includes your academic background, work experience, research expertise, credentials, any funded research that you've done through SSHRC. So if you had previously won or are currently holding a CGRS-M, or the master's award through SSHRC, that's something that you're going to be listing there. You may have done some SSHRC funded research through your supervisor or another faculty member at Brock or otherwise. That's something that you can also list. The application form will include your profile, program information, areas of study, and diversity considerations. And then when it comes to attachments, making sure that they're PDF attachments. You'll attach your research proposal, which is a maximum of 2 pages. There are different elements in what you'll want to include in your proposal if you are currently enrolled in a doctoral program versus if you're a prospective student. In the instructions through the SSHRC website, it'll provide the distinctions between the two, so make sure that you check that out. Your bibliography and citations is up to 5 pages. So citations you'll want to include first. Those are sources that you've used within your research proposal. And then if you have any other articles or sources or journals that are related to your research project, related to your field of study, but weren't included in your citations, that's what you include underneath your citations in your bibliography. Okay. Transcripts and official letters, so they need to be up-to-date transcripts, and I'll get into those a little bit later. Allowable inclusions. This is an optional document. You don't have to upload it, but this is noting any special circumstances that have delayed or interrupted your completion of degree requirements. So this could be things like parental leave, illness, family responsibilities and obligations, and other instances that would have disrupted your academic career. So again, this is completely optional, but it is something that the reviewers will take into consideration. You'll also provide a 2-page document, maximum 2 pages, of any research contributions and relevant experiences and activities that you've participated in. And then some of you may be applying to some of the supplements and joint initiatives. So for example, the sport participation in research initiative. If you do so, you need to provide a justification of why you would be eligible for that initiative. Finally, as part of your application is 2 referee reports. So you are going to identify your referees in your application. You're going to provide their name, their title, and their email. And then once you do so, those referees are going to be notified by SSHRC, and they will need to complete a letter of appraisal. Your application cannot be moved forward until both referees complete that. So make sure that you're staying on top of that. For NSERC, it's a little bit different. You'll complete an online application form. You're going to be required to fill out a bunch of different information, including your personal profile. That's where you'll be assigned an NSERC pin if not previously assigned to you. Your academic background. You can list up to 10 competitive awards, any scholarship or fellowship information, your thesis that has been completed or in progress, as well as keywords and research subject code. There are other elements there I'll let you read on the slide. When it comes to your attachments, you're going to provide an outline of your proposed research, again, a maximum of 2 pages. Your bibliography will be, again, a maximum of 5 pages, so same as SSHRC. Justification for eligibility, so this is just outlining why your research is aligned with NSERC. Contributions and statements will also be included. Any special circumstances, again, anything that interrupted your academic journey, and official transcripts need to be uploaded as well. For official transcripts, they need to be from all post-secondary institutions. Again, with the referee report, you're going to submit that information in the portal. Your referees will be notified. They need to complete the letter of appraisal and other elements. You won't be able to submit your application until that is done by your referees. Finally, for CIHR, a little bit different from NSERC and SSHRC. CIHR utilizes the Canadian Common CV or the CCV. This is done separately from the CIHR application portal. So you'll need to be able to create a CCV account, and you're going to select the CIHR academic CV type archetype. So in your ResearchNet application, you'll be asked to provide responses in text boxes or asked to submit attachments. You'll need to provide participation information, so that requires a CIHR PIN, which again, you'll need to acquire from the agency. I recommend that you acquire this PIN as soon as possible. Do not leave it until the last minute, because if you don't have that PIN, then you won't be able to submit your application. And if you leave until the last minute, chances are that the folks at CIHR are going to be flooded with requests for the CIHR PIN, so you might not get it by the internal deadline. So you'll also need to provide your publication lists, where you include your role and how much you contributed to that publication. So that's a maximum of 2 pages. Your proposal will include a lay abstract, training expectations, and a 1-page research project summary. You'll be asked to indicate the institution paid, which is the institution that will receive the application. So in this case, BrockU or potentially CIHR. Again, if you are currently registered in a degree program at BrockU or were within this past calendar year, BrockU University is who you should be inserting as your institution paid field. You also need to submit a confirmation of scientific area form, again, uploading official transcripts, signature pages, so this must include your supervisor's signature, and a 1-page document outlining, again, any special circumstances that you might have. Like SSHRC and NSERC, you can identify, you'll also need your 2 referees. Again, they'll be notified by email to complete their letter of appraisal. So formatting standards are really important. You need to ensure that all of your attachments meet agency requirements. There are slight differences between each of the agencies when it comes to maximum number of pages, single space versus double space, fonts that are acceptable, margins, all those kinds of things. Excess pages are going to be removed. So if your proposal is 3 pages, 4 pages, anything in excess is going to be completely axed out. All of your attachments need to be in PDF form. Make sure your attachments are not password protected. So this is in particularly important for transcripts, okay? Make sure your transcripts are not password protected. Otherwise, reviewers will not be able to view them. And any attachments that don't follow those standards will make your application ineligible. So really make sure that you have that down pat. So there's some self-identification questions that are asked for each of the agencies. So these are used by the agencies to better outreach different groups in academia, underrepresented groups in academia. There are also some special initiatives as part that you might have further access to funding through. So the Black Scholars Initiative, or those of you who are self-identified as Indigenous, we can send self-identified Indigenous applicants beyond our quota. So for example, for SSHRC, instead of just the 16, we could potentially send 17 or 18 if we have Indigenous applicants. And there are some instructions based off of the agencies as to what you need to do to make sure that the agencies know as well. So for your research proposal, again, really important to understand what is being required by the agency when it comes to the proposal. So some of that will come down to, are you a current doctoral student? Are you a prospective doctoral student? Does the page limit include citations as well, or is that in a separate document? Again, these need to be uploaded as a PDF. You got to read those instructions. It's really, really important. The goal of your proposal, again, is to be as clear as possible. It needs to be easily understood by a reviewer, potentially outside your field of research. There are multidisciplinary selection committees, especially internally at Brock. So that's why we recommend having your scholarship application, your research proposal, viewed not just by your supervisor, but also other faculty members within your department, other members of your cohort, even people outside of your department, so that you know for a fact that your proposal is clear enough that a general academic audience can understand it. So some other tips and tricks of use clear, plain language. You need to be clear in your communication. You want to avoid jargon. You want to avoid acronyms as much as possible. You don't want to rely too much on jargon and acronyms and highly technical terms. You need to be feasible with your project. So again, can this project be done during your studies or in the duration of your award, if you get one? You need to emphasize the significance and impact. Why should you be the person who is being funded, right? So the difference between scholarship and awards and grants is that for grants, the applications are for a research project to be completed. But for scholarships and awards, it's not just the research, it's the researcher, right? It's an investment into you as a person. So you need to be able, throughout your entire application, including your research proposal, indicate why you are someone that is worth funding for your research. What is that you are going to make that investment pay off. Emphasis on knowledge mobilization again. How will people know about your research? Not just through research publications, or even within research publications, that they're not just locked behind a paywall. Like, how are you going to make it so that as many people will be able to read your the research output that you put forward, right? Public speaking events, lectures, community engagement. These are all really, really good things to include throughout your application. Referees and letters of appraisal. Again, you're going to have two referees, one ideally being your supervisor. Referees receive an email invitation that's generated by the agency. Again, give your referees plenty of time to complete the letter of appraisal. Don't leave this until the last second. You cannot submit your application until this is done. You'll be able to see within your portal the status of those letters. You won't be able to read them yourselves, but you'll know when they're in progress or have been completed. If it's getting close to the deadline and you see that the appraisals haven't been completed, I'd recommend that you reach out to that referee to give them a little gentle nudge, a gentle reminder to complete the appraisal. One thing that's really important to know, good and great letters are kind of an expectation when it comes to these competitions. Bad ones really stand out. Bad ones and mediocre letters really stand out to reviewers. So your supervisor should definitely be supplying a pretty good letter. But your second reference is almost your more important one. Ideally, it's someone who can speak to your abilities as a researcher or as a potential researcher, someone perhaps you have a close relationship with. Maybe you've worked with them as a TA or on a separate research project. And things that you can do to help guide them is to send supporting documents. So share your research proposal, share your CV. Highlight parts of your CV you wish for them to talk about the most. Ideally, it's something that they can speak to on a personal level, as in, say, like a research project that you collaborated with together, but really make sure you're working with them as much as possible so that they can put forward a strong letter of appraisal rather than a mediocre one or a bad one. So for some of you, I should say the agencies encourage applicants to consider EDI in the research process. For some of you, this will be more prevalent than others, but you should be asking yourself questions like, how is your research going to be carried out? Who are your research subjects? Who is impacted by the research? Thinking critically about diversity factors like biological sex, race, gender, sexual orientation, even things like geographical location. All of those things can affect your research process. And incorporating EDI in your proposal can strengthen your proposal and be taken into consideration by the selection committee. You will be asked if EDI considerations have been made, and you should be including that within your proposal as well. Transcripts need to be up to date, need to be official, and they need to be from all undergraduate and graduate studies. This is really important. If you are missing transcripts, if your transcripts are not up to date, then you are at risk of your application being ineligible. So for those of you, let's say, who are currently enrolled at Brock, make sure you wait to order your transcripts until at least September 2025. Don't order your transcripts in August or July or over the summer, or submit a transcript from like the previous year. We need to be able to see that you're currently enrolled in your program, so it needs to be up to date. We will not accept screenshots, course marks, inquiry pages, printouts from this personal student portal. It has to be official. It has to be up to date. We will not be accepting any applications that are without official up-to-date transcripts from any applicant. They need to be uploaded as a PDF file, so making sure that you're including the legends so that we know how to translate those grades. Again, making sure they're not password protected and ensuring that they don't exceed the size requirement. So for CIHR, the size requirement is 30 megabytes. Oftentimes you'll have to submit them as one file, so you'll have to combine your transcripts, and I recommend doing it from reverse chronological order. So start with the program you're currently in or most recently completed, and then work your way back from there. If you have a transcript that's written in a language other than English, you must provide a transcript with the translation. And also make sure you keep your copies of your uploaded transcripts for future applications. So many of you will also be applying for the Ontario Graduate Scholarship or the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship. Make sure you keep those copies because you can use them again. So the process of the competition: you submit your application, there's an internal adjudication with Brock committees. The top applicants will be notified. You'll have some time to review and to tinker around with your application before it's sent forward to the external agencies. They'll have their own adjudication process, and then the results are announced in April of 2026. Could be late April, could be mid-April. It really depends on the agencies. Just note that the results of other competitions like OGS, like QE2, will likely be announced, so keep this in mind. So reviewing your application, ensuring that you have all the components and they've been submitted. Again, agency portals will not accept incomplete applications. Notifying your referees, giving them plenty of time to submit their letter of support. And also really understand that portals handle a very high volume of users on the last day. So around those internal deadlines, making sure you've got everything that you need in place. I've already mentioned a lot of these tips throughout the presentation: ordering your transcripts early, referees reaching out to them well in advance. I would say the biggest ones are, again, having people look at your application, multiple people, and also avoid being humble and modest about your research that you've done up to this point or the significance of your project. You don't necessarily want to go overboard and overstate the importance of your research, but this is your time to shine. This is your time to really outline, why this research is important and why you are the best person to complete this research project. Why should you be funded? Okay. So for those of you who are interested in getting some more feedback, I co-host a peer review feedback workshop with Danielle Morris O'Connor. Some of you may have worked with her before. These workshops will take place Thursday, September 11th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and Tuesday, September 16th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I encourage you to watch this video, which you are doing right now, so congratulations. Make sure you bring a draft of your scholarship application. It's an expectation that you bring at least some completed components of your application, because you're going to be providing and receiving feedback to and from others who attend the workshop. These are hybrid workshops, but we strongly recommend that you attend in person, because again, you're going to be swapping around applications and providing feedback and getting feedback, and you'll sign up for each of these workshops through Experience BU. Danielle, again, she's going to be co-hosting the workshop with me. She's our graduate academic support specialist through the FGSPA. If you scan this QR code, you can book some one-on-one sessions. There's actually, it says on here three sessions per term. It's actually 2 sessions per term, but she provides consults and critical reads that you can use for your scholarship applications, or even for your proposal, your thesis dissertation, all those kinds of things. She also hosts a writing cafe every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Where you can drop in for extra support. This QR code will also take you to the Brock Graduate Student SharePoint. So you'll get some additional videos that you can watch on scholarships, tips, and tricks. And there's a bunch of good information in there, especially for new students. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to myself, Danielle as well. Sina Thakor from ORS. She specializes in EDI and research, so if you have any questions about that, reach out to her. These are all the contacts as well for each of the agencies in case you have any issues with your application. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck with your applications, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.